If you've got a Bible, please do turn to Galatians. You can probably tell by my voice already that I'm a bit croaky. There's been a cold going around, and I think a lot of people have had colds, haven't they? And I've certainly got it at the moment. And when I strain my voice, I go kind of high-pitched. So it can be a bit messy. I can imagine dogs for miles around howling at a high-pitched voice. We are looking at this subject of Advent. I'll just ask a little opening question. Who has actually here, I know the kids have gone now, so we can be honest. Who actually here has got an Advent calendar? Fantastic. All right, I haven't, but I just put my hand up to encourage others. Who's got a chocolate Advent calendar? Quite right. If you're going to do it with chocolate. All right. But it isn't really just about getting a chocolate Advent calendar, isn't it? It's not just about the excitement of opening a box, a little doorway to see if there's some sort of chocolate inside, and usually on the back of the doorway there's a message of some sort. It's not really, excuse me, all about that. But it's really about waiting. Can I ask you this question to start with? Do you like waiting? Waiting for a bus? Waiting for a train? Waiting in the queue at the post office? Or the chemist? Waiting for a parcel to come from Amazon? Waiting in the waiting room at the doctor's surgery? Or worse, the dentist's? Did somebody say dentist out there? I was in the dentist this week, and I had that feeling of, I don't really want to do this. You don't want to be told you need this done or you need that done. Wouldn't it be better just to, but you've got to, but the waiting is there. It's interesting, isn't it? We got microwaves to reduce the waiting. So that a meal now, instead of taking 20 minutes to cook, it takes 3 minutes to cook. But what do we do for those 3 minutes? If you're like me, you stand over the microwave. Come on! I didn't do that when it took 20 minutes. I go off and do something else. But then I stand there waiting for the microwave to hurry. I remember waiting for Emily to be born, our firstborn. And those 9 months before Emily arrived seemed to go so slowly. And yet the 12 years since Emily's birth seemed to have flown by. Because waiting sometimes sort of makes things seem more slowly. Time seems to slow down. So today is the first Sunday in Advent. And that word Advent, and I'm going to be very simple and straightforward this morning, and very short as well. You probably think, yes. But I just wanted to ponder one particular verse, all to do with Advent. Apparently it's a Latin word, Adventus. Did you know that? Yeah, okay. Some people knew that. And it means, we've already said it, coming. Let's see. At least Darryl was listening. And it means coming. But there's an element of Advent, this waiting, that is also expectant. There's an important guest that is about to arrive. And there's a longing for him to come, a yearning for him to come. And part of Advent is recognizing and almost sharing the ancient longing and yearning for the coming Messiah. And as it were, in these next few days as we lead into Christmas, we're just reflecting a little bit on the fact that for hundreds, thousands of years, Israel waited for their Messiah with a real yearning, a real longing for this promised rescuer to come. Now, we know our history, and it's a tragic story that they didn't recognize the Messiah when he came. And right now, they are still waiting for the Messiah, the one who would fulfill the prophecies, the one that will rescue them. So we're looking at Advent, and we're talking about waiting. And let me ask you this question to start with. I know we don't like waiting, and I know waiting makes time go very slowly, or at least it can. But let me ask you this. Are you somebody who waits for God? Are you someone who waits for God? The idea of waiting and being still and being quiet before God is a positive thing. When nothing else matters. I don't know about you. I feel as if modern life is so frantic and so furious that every moment of your modern life, my modern life, our modern lives, something is always trying to push in on us. I actually really like it now when we don't have the radio on. Now, Elspeth's very good. She has the radio on and she has it set on Premiere. So it's all Christian music. And I feel kind of guilty switching it off. But actually, sometimes I just don't like every moment of every second of every day being invaded from noise from somewhere or the other. Now, I'm terrible because I love to have the television on. And Elspeth was switching that off. But sometimes we just need to get away from everything else. We need to get away from the rush. Put everything else to one side and be with God. And that isn't just a rush into his presence and rush out of his presence and tick all the boxes. I prayed, I read, I had a moment of meditation, and I'm out the door. Because that's how it can be sometimes. It's actually a matter of putting everything else on hold and saying it's really important that right now I wait for God. Psalm 33, verse 20 and 21 says this: we wait in hope for the Lord. He is our help, our shield. In him our hearts rejoice. It's really important that you, if you are a Christian, a man or woman of faith, has times when you wait for God. And it might be moments of silence, but you wait for God. Warren Wiersbe. Now, I don't know if you know much about Warren Wiersbe. He's a pastor in America. He's a lovely fella. He's written all sorts of books, and I really treasure things that are written by Warren Wiersbe. He said this: the ability to calm your soul and wait before God is one of the most difficult things in the Christian life. Would you agree with that? How many quiet times have just been a massive rush, in and out? It goes on. The ability to calm your soul and wait before God is one of the most difficult things in the Christian life. Our old nature is restless. The world around us is frantically in a hurry. But a restless heart usually leads to a reckless life. I think there's so much truth in that, isn't it? This is an old preacher who has studied God's word for year after year after year, and this is the sort of advice he gives. I think if you can get away from everything else, if for a moment you can shut the door on everything else, switch the televisions and the radios off, and you can just spend some time waiting for God, read a little bit of the Bible, say a few prayers, but in essence, wait for God, then you calm, and that restless heart that leads then to a reckless life is just stilled. The ability, let me read it again, the ability to calm your soul before God and wait is one of the most difficult things in the Christian life. I think it's fascinating that the church has put in the calendar Advent. It's not, like Barbara said, it's not, there's no Advent in the Bible, but it's just an acknowledgement that Israel waited and waited and waited for a Messiah to come. And in the same way, we wait for Christmas to arrive. But as we look at Advent and as we think about this, I want us to draw our minds to two little verses that Keith read to us. And they are Galatians chapter 4 and 5. And maybe, I don't know if you, maybe highlight these verses in your Bible and just take these verses with you through the week. Now, that's not too heavy to do, is it? And maybe through this week, just meditate on the meaning of these verses. It says this: but when the set time had fully come, God sent his Son, born of a woman, born under the law, to redeem those under the law, that we might receive adoption to sonship. They are great verses. Now, if you read it first time, if you're like me, I read a verse like that, and it's Bible speak, and you read it first time, and you, oh, yeah, it's really nice, but you don't really get it. You've got to let this one sink in. Some verses hit you straight off. Some verses, you just need to give them time to sink in. You know, if you're a tea person, you know about, you leave the bag in there for a bit. Helen Stewart, like builder's tea. They like worse than builder's tea. You can stand your spoon up in it. I can't do that sort of tea. So it's just a way of it. But this is a verse that needs like a tea bag. If you want it strong, you need to leave it soaking. And this is one of those verses. Let me read it again. But when the set time had fully come, God sent his son, born of a woman, born under the law, to redeem those under the law, that we might receive adoption to sonship. Now, I'm going to ask some questions today. And I'm going to give out some chocolates today. All right? So, I need somebody I can trust to give out the chocolates. Go on, Theo. Come out here. Come on. Can you do this job for me? You can let them choose whichever chocolate they like, because I'm going to ask some questions. I thought it'd just pep things up a bit. There's only 2 Malteser bars in there. All right? Keep your eyes on those 2. Don't really want to give them away. All right? You should sit back down there, and when we do this question. So there's 3 little points, 3 little questions. If you answer a question, you get a chocolate. I thought to myself, people won't participate unless there's something chocolatey involved. All right? I thought I stood a better chance if the children had stayed in. So this is just to G you up, all right? So stay focused and in the zone. All right. 3 headings, 3 chocolate bars. Maybe we could give out more than 3 because there's more than 3 in the box. All right. The first heading is this, the timing. All right. Look at this verse. All right. If we can keep the verse up for a moment. What does this verse tell us about the timing of Jesus' birth? Who would like to answer that one? Oh, Andy at the back. There's a little bit of that there. All right. Oh, you didn't put your hand up, Royston. Come on. Schoolboy error there. All right. Fliss over there. Bang on time. All right. Royston was right as well, but you're not getting a chocolate, Royston. You didn't put your hand up. Fliss. Just there, Theo. When the set time had fully come. It kind of doubles it, doesn't it? It was a set time. The time of Jesus' birth was precisely set. There was nothing accidental about it. The time of Jesus' birth was precisely set. And only when that set time had fully come, he's really emphasizing the point, then the Messiah arrives. There was nothing accidental about it. I love the story. So just later, if that's all right. Somebody's put their hand up there. I can't deal with questions, sorry. I love the story of a school teacher. He's in a class. It's a really hot summer day, and there's a wasp flying around the classroom that's really irritating. But what's even more irritating is every time, now this shows how old the story is, every time the teacher writes on the blackboard with his chalk, some children talk. And as soon as he turns back to face the children, they stop talking. So he doesn't know who it is. So this teacher decides, and this wouldn't be illegal today, this teacher decides, I am going to throw my piece of chalk at wherever I think the noise is coming from next time I turn around. So he writes on the board, somebody talks, and immediately he turns around and he throws this piece of chalk the full length of the classroom. Now, it completely misses the children that were talking. But on the back window of the classroom is this wasp that's dancing up and down the window. And this piece of chalk goes, and it literally just takes the wasp out. And the teacher just says, just be careful, because the next one will be you. Now, that was a complete fluke and a complete accident. Complete fluke and a complete accident. What happens here is no fluke and no accident. When the set time had fully come, verse 4 says, at precisely the right time, Jesus was born into the world. Timing is a hard thing to get right. Let me show you a couple of photos. These photos are all to do with timing. First one, how about that? He's diving headfirst into a lake, but he's just caught. The camera's just caught him before he even breaks the surface of the water. Looks like he's balancing there, doesn't it? And the next one. Parachute coming down. Looks like he's just going to touch down on the moon, doesn't it? Perfect timing, but they're freak accidents. Perfect timing is a difficult thing to get right. But in this case, perfect timing means hundreds of prophecies over thousands of years being fulfilled at exactly the right moment, the crucial moment, when the time had fully come. It's interesting, if you read Galatians 4, verses 1 to 7, it paints the picture of a boy who is an adopted son, who will inherit a vast fortune that the father wants him to have. But he's not going to get that until he's exactly at the right age. And until he's at the right age, the guardians and the trustees are looking after it. And in fact, that son is no better off than any slave or servant. He's got absolutely nothing because all the inheritance is promised to him, but he can't do anything with it. And that's what is painted in Galatians 4, the picture that is painted. And then it says, when the time had fully come, this boy inherits. It's talking about him coming of age. It's talking about a promised inheritance becoming an actual inheritance. Galatians 4 is talking about the birth of Jesus changing everything. All the promises are now actual in Jesus. When the time had fully come, the Bible says. God displays perfect timing. Historians talk about the world being absolutely ready for Jesus from a historical point of view. The stage was set. I don't know if you've ever been to the theatre, and you see the curtains come up, and the stage is set there. I've got a picture of a stage, hopefully. And the actual stage is set and ready. The lights are on, the microphone's out, and everything's there perfectly ready. For what? For the first person to walk on to the stage. And very much history, I think, was tailored, set, ready for Jesus just to walk in. Historians talk about Roman roads and travel and infrastructure, making movement and travel for the gospel message afterwards to be passed on easy. If Jesus had come a few hundred years earlier, a little bit earlier, it wouldn't have happened. Historians talk about the Greek language and culture brought cohesion, meaning that societies were mixed and were able to overlap, and there's more transport going between each other, and there's more understanding with language. Historians also talk about the Roman gods and the Greek gods had lost the hearts and minds of the common people. So there was an emptiness within the common person looking for somebody to fulfill this. Historians also talk about Israel expectant, hungry for the Messiah because they were oppressed by Roman rule. Now, they're things we don't even ponder or consider. But this is God just making sure everything's in place so that when his son comes, the message can spread out because there's cohesion between languages and there's roads that people can travel on more easily. And there's a world that's almost united and together for that message to go through to. So when it says the set time had fully come, you can be absolutely sure the set time had fully come. So next question and next piece of chocolate, the action, all right, the action. What action did God take here? Theo, are you ready for this? Do I hand out a chocolate? What action did God take here? 4 simple words in the verse. God sent his son. You know, when you consider other stories like the parables where Jesus talks about, Bianca, there's a chocolate there for you. When you think about the parables Jesus told about the vineyard owner being rejected by the tenants of the vineyard, and you unfold that parable, and he sends all those people, those servants, and then in the end, at an incredible risk to himself, he sends his own son. God sent his son. 4 words packed with meaning. Picture a king sending his son, the ambassador, the prince, to the people, knowing that they are going to kill him. Yet both the king and the prince are willing to go. Martin Luther said this. He said, the mystery of the humanity of Christ. Can we flick on just one slide? Just realised I've got it on my notes, I can't read it. I haven't got it. Oh, I'm sorry. Right, I'll try and read it from this. The mystery of the humanity of Christ, that he sank himself into flesh, is beyond human understanding. It is, isn't it? All of God, the Son, packed into a body. And it goes on. God sent his son. And it says, born of a woman. What does that mean? It means he was born into all the weakness and limitations of a human body. If you were God, all timeless and limitless and eternal, being born to a woman would be a real come down, wouldn't it? To be born into flesh and bones would be a real come down, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it? To be born into so many limits and restrictions when you are so all-powerful. Then he goes on. Not only was he born of a woman, meaning born in weakness and limitations, it then says, born under the law. Meaning the lawgiver. Now, God never puts himself above the law because it's his law, and it rightly reflects his character. But in this case, he puts himself well under the law. The lawgiver is living under the condemnation of the law. That's what it means. And he has to make sure he completes and fulfills every element of the law. So, we have the timing, and then we have the action, and then the third little thought I just want to bring out is the purpose. What was God's purpose in sending his son? Now, this is worth 2 chocolate bars, this one. Because if you look at the verse, read it through, it's in verse 5. There are 2 things that God does, 2 things that God achieves through sending his son. Who can tell me what they are? See, I love this because it keeps people on their toes. Zoe. Oh, you chose number 2. We get adopted into sonship. He brings us into his family. All right, Theo, can you give Zoe a chocolate for that? What's the first one? Kathy at the back. To redeem. So there is redemption. He buys us back. We were far away from God, and he buys us back. He pays the debt. In the Old Testament, there's a prophet whose wife is a prostitute, basically. And he goes and he searches her out. And when she's for sale in the marketplace, he buys her back. In the real terms, as a wife, she's worthless. She's been a terrible wife. But he loves her. He treasures her. And he buys her back. So we see here redemption, buying back, and adoption. To redeem those under the law, that we might receive adoption to sonship. Every single penny, when it talks about being redeemed, every single penny of our moral debt is paid in full. I was under the law, I am now forgiven. I don't have to continually beg for forgiveness because he has paid the moral debt that I owe. I am debt-free in front of God for eternity. Isn't that fantastic? Is that good? Sorry? It's good. And then not only, it's kind of, again, I think in this verse, he states things and he states them again to make sure we get them. Not only are you redeemed, you're adopted into sonship. With adoption, you have every legal right to be in that family. And no one can contest your legal right to be in that family. You have every legal right. You are legally a member of that family. You were outside the family of God. That made you lost and a nobody. But you were brought into the family of God, adopted into God Almighty's family. And that is what we get. So when I accept this redemption and this adoption, my moral debt is fully paid. I'm adopted into his family, and I can live a debt-free existence knowing that I fully belong forever. And that brings with it peace, and that brings with it security. So when the angels talk about this child bringing peace, this is the peace he brought. Peace with God for eternity. Security, no matter what, the very earth can collapse beneath your feet, and you are absolutely secure if you're in Christ. Have you ever watched the film, the Marigold Hotel film? I don't know if you've ever watched that. I don't know if I should be recommending these sort of films. All right. But in that, the fella has, and I know I've said it before, the fella who owns the hotel has this phrase. Do you know the phrase? Anybody know the phrase? No? Well, this could be a long sermon, couldn't it? He says something about, I'll give you a clue, see if you can remember. He says something about, no, it's gone clean out of my head. Yes. He says something about not being finished. Now, what is it? Does anybody else know? It's gone clean out of my head. Goodness me. It's not the end. Oh, no. Sorry? Did somebody? I'm sorry, this is embarrassing. It's gone right out of my head. I'll come back to it. All right. People are looking for peace and people are looking for security, but they will never find peace that lasts and security anywhere else but in Christ. He talks about, in the Marigold Hotel film, he talks about everything will be all right in the end. This is it. Everything will be all right in the end. If it's not all right, that's because it's not the end. That's the phrase, isn't it? And I think that's a beautiful phrase, which is completely untrue in the majority of life. But it is absolutely true with the Lord Jesus Christ. Because in the end, everything finishes well with Christ. People look for peace. People look for security. And they will never find peace and security that lasts except for in Christ. Let's go back to that verse 4 and 5. But when the set time had fully come, God sent his Son, born of a woman, born under the law, to redeem those under the law, that we might receive adoption to sonship. That verse displays God's perfect timing. That verse displays God's love in acting out and sending his Son. That verse displays what we get and enjoy because of what Jesus has done for us. I want to finish there. And I want us now to reflect on this communion time. We're coming to a time of communion, and if people need to rush off, we'll sing a song in a moment. Feel free to slip out. But I would love you to stay and just reflect on that verse and all that Christ has done for us. And as we break the bread and as we drink the wine, we are remembering the immense cost for Jesus to step into time, to live a perfect life, and then to willingly give that life up so that you and me can be redeemed and adopted in his family forever. And as we break this bread, we're going to remember that his body was broken. And as we take this wine, we are going to remember that his blood was spilt. And in that remembrance, we do something else as well. We rejoice. I know acts of remembrance can be solemn occasions, but actually I do believe that communion should also be a chance to rejoice. Because as we remember, we realize how much we have in Christ. We remember our moral debt has been paid. I don't have to go on my knees begging to God to forgive the lump sum of my wrong, because it's dealt with. I do need to keep short records and say, oh Lord, I did this again. Please forgive that. I do need to do that to keep the relationship going. But I'm redeemed. And I have the sonship that comes only through Christ. But also, as we take this bread and this wine, we're not just looking back at what he's done for us. We are also looking forward to the next advent. The next coming. That's what the word means. The next coming of Jesus. Because this was just the beginning. To make us, to enable us to be redeemed and restored and brought us into sonship. In the end, there's going to be perfect completion of all this when Jesus returns. Again, it will be perfect timing. Again, it will be incredible. And we will be redeemed physically, spiritually, and in every way, and restored and made new. And the sonship that we have in Christ will be seen all around us. Rather than a thing of faith, it will be seen and known and experienced when we are no longer in a sinful sort of setting and in a broken world, but we're restored and made good. Now, if you know and love the Lord Jesus Christ, and if he's your Saviour, he's the one that redeemed you, and you know that you've been adopted into his family, then this bread and this wine is for you to take as well, so that you can remember and rejoice.